World's Strongest Man started in 1977 and has had 25 different winners. From the early days of Don Reinhardt and Bill Kazmaier to the sport being popularized with Magnus Magnuson and John Paul Sigmarsson, to the era of giants ushering strongman into pop culture with Thor, Eddie, and Brian, to today's world with Tom Stoltman and myself battling it out. Crowning the world's strongest man has always been, in my opinion, the #1 title in the world for any man on the planet to desire. In fact, my own strongman journey started when I watched Eddie Hall's documentary, and he said, quote, "Any man who says they don't want to be the world's strongest man is lying to themselves." I realized that was true. 4 years later, I was on top of the podium at Myrtle Beach holding the Barry Frank Trophy, being crowned the world's strongest man. But of world's strongest man competitors, who was the best? People have tried to compare this before, talked about weights, talked about some nostalgia, talked about a variety of things that are hard to put your finger on. But where would the athletes today rank the strongman of the past? And that's what we're doing today. I've taken 12 of the most accomplished, famous, and popular strongmen from the past, and we're gonna rank them in 4 categories, from S all the way down to C. I've forced athletes to put 3 in each category, so you can't put everyone up at the top, and some people will end up in the C category despite winning World's Strongest Man. Now, I haven't included any recent names like Tom Stoltman, Ray O'Neill, or myself because we're in the thick of it. Where we land on this type of list is to be determined when we hang up the belts, and because we're giving our input as well. Many have tried to do this comparison in a variety of ways, but I'm with the current strongest men in the world who avidly follow the sport, and they're gonna put their votes to rank these 12 iconic World's Strongest Man winners. Here's how it works. If an athlete ranks one of the former athletes in the S tier, they get 4 points. A tier, they get 3, B tier, they get 2, C tier, they get 1. I'm gonna add up those points, and I'm gonna rank these 12 iconic World's Strongest Man winners. Eddie Hall, the world's strongest man in 2017, and shattered the frame of reality to deadlift 500 kilos, breaking the deadlift record by an unprecedented 37 kilos in one night. Bill Kazmaier, 3 times world's strongest man winner, picking up strongman after a brief stint with the Green Bay Packers. Kaz boasts a bench press of 660 pounds, and he got kicked out of the world's strongest man competition for being too dominant over his competitors at the time, essentially ruining the show. We have Brian Shaw, a 4-time winner of World's Strongest Man and a legend of the sport. He has numerous world records and is far and away the most accomplished North American athlete of all time, potentially ever. We have Gary Taylor, who's a 1-time winner of World's Strongest Man. A Welshman and the only Welshman to win World's Strongest Man, who not only won the title, but also won a medal in the Commonwealth Games for weightlifting. And maybe multi-sport athlete holds some credence to current World's Strongest Man competitors. We have Hafthor Bjornsson, 1-time winner of World's Strongest Man. Thor is arguably the strongest human to ever live. He's the current deadlift world record holder after making very light work of 510 kilos about a month ago. We have Magnus Samuelsson, a 1-time winner of World's Strongest Man. Magnus Samuelsson had arguably the strongest grip of all time and was also one of the strongest arm wrestlers in his generation, beating several world champions during his peak strength. Of course, no strongman list of the past is complete without Zydrunas, the 4-time winner of World's Strongest Man. Zydrunas has won the most strongman competition wins of anyone on the planet with 82. In many people's eyes, Zydrunas is the GOAT. We have Don Reinhardt, a very early winner of World's Strongest Man and a world record powerlifter with a raw total of 2,391 pounds. Don was well ahead of his time and is one of the most statically strong people in history. How do we account for how strong he was compared to everyone else in history compared to how strong he would be today? We have John Paul Sigmarsson, a 4 times winner of World's Strongest Man and strongman legend. The late John Paul is one of the most accomplished and nostalgic strongman ever. He also generated some of the most iconic strongman viral clips of all time, like this one.
To be alive if you can't do that.
I think it's hard to be involved with the sport without hearing that quote. And it's tattooed on more than one person that I know. Next up, we have Jeff Capes, a 2 times winner of the World's Strongest Man, and also the first Brit to win. Jeff also held records in shot put and is a major reason the sport is popular in the UK. To be honest, I didn't know much about him, unfortunately, until he passed away last year. And then I learned what an impact he had. He was really the first strongman celebrity in the UK, ushering in the era of many other celebrities like Eddie Hall and Tom Stoltman. We have Mariusz Pudzianowski up next, the most successful World's Strongest Man competitor ever. Mariusz is the only 5-time winner of the competition. To World's Strongest Man purists, he is the greatest of all time. We have Magnus for Magnusson, a 4-time winner of the World's Strongest Man, the current World's Strongest Man referee, and he was an incredible athlete. Not only that, but he was a crafty competitor and figured out his way around the rules to be as successful as possible. Maybe that hurts him in these rankings. Each voter will have 3 spots in every category, so no matter how much pain it might cause them, some World's Strongest Man winners will be listed in the C category. After all the voters rank the World's Strongest Man winners, we'll have a final point total to determine the best and the least best World's Strongest Man winners according to the current strongest man in the world. Let's do it. You'll notice that only 5 men sat down because the final 2 wanted to remain completely anonymous, and I'll leave you to wonder why. We do have the final results. Now, of course, all of these guys were crowned the World's Strongest Man at some point in their lives, so it doesn't feel right to put anyone in a low tier. And that's why I forced all the guys and myself to fill out 3 in every category. As a reminder, the guys have put rankings of S, A, B, or C. I'm giving a corresponding point value of 4 for S, 3 for A, 2 for B, and 1 for C. With 7 World's Strongest Man current athletes voting, that gives a maximum possible score of 28. And I'll give you a tip. 1 person from the past achieved a perfect score. A unanimous S classification among all the guys who voted would give you that perfect score. Now, put in the comments now who you think that person should be, and working from bottom up, let's introduce our C tier. Tied with the lowest point total at 9 is Magnus Samuelsson and Gary Taylor. They both received 2 B votes and 5 C votes. Our last in the C tier with 10 points is Don Reinhardt, who received 5 C tier votes, 1 B tier vote, and 1 A tier vote. Now on to the B tier. With 1 more point than Don Reinhardt, earning his way into the B tier, was Jeff Capes, coming in with 11 points total. Jeff received 3 C tier votes and 4 B tier votes. Next up, a bit of a surprise. With 17 points is the 4 times winner of World's Strongest Man, Magnus for Magnusson. This might have had some personal bias as he's the current referee, although Magnus, I put you in the top category and I want you to remember that. With 1 C tier, 2 B tier, and 4 A tier votes. Perhaps this refereeing has knocked him down a little with personal bias from some of the guys, but this is a real point of interest. A phenomenal athlete, Magnus wasn't the static powerhouse of some of the other World's Strongest Man winners. A lot of people give more credit to raw strength and competition success, and this result could be some combination of lack of raw strength in comparison to other winners and his work as a referee. But referees are never friends, except for me. Our final B tier athlete with 18 points is a big surprise to me. This is Eddie Hall with 4 B tier votes, 2 C tier votes, and 1 A tier vote. While he was massive on static strength, it's possible that winning the World's Strongest Man 1 time held him back in the rankings. Now, we're on to the thick of it, and we are into our A tier athletes. We have 2 categories left, and we have Big Z, Brian Shaw, Thor, Bill Kazmaier, John-Paul Sigmarsson, and Mariusz left to rank, with the lowest point total of A tier edging out Eddie Hall by only 1 point. We have John-Paul Sigmarsson at 19 points. He had 3 B tier votes, 3 A tier votes, and 1 S tier vote. I think this is a credit to his World's Strongest Man success for sure, as well as the incredible charisma that made him an unforgettable strongman competitor. Next up in A tier is someone well ahead of their time in Bill Kazmaier. He had 20 points. With 2 B tier votes, 4 A tier votes, and 1 S tier vote, I wonder how much his ban from World's Strongest Man held him back, because it's entirely possible that we'd be looking at the most successful World's Strongest Man competitor of all time if that ban didn't happen, which very well could have moved him into the S tier. A similar circumstance we're going to see in a little bit. Some people just didn't compete at World's Strongest Man as much as they could have, and I think that changes these rankings considerably. Finally, tied with Kaz for the highest total in A tier is Thor. While he only won World's Strongest Man 1 time, he is widely considered in contention for the strongest person of all time if we all competed at our best. Obviously, the voting athletes put a high regard on World's Strongest Man performances, which is what we see in S tier. Thor had 1 C tier vote with a level of personal bias. I'll let you guys guess who. It wasn't me. 1 B tier vote, 3 A tier votes, and 2 S tier votes. Now let's get to the S tier, the best of the best. If you've been following closely, you already know these athletes, but here's the top 3 iconic World's Strongest Man competitors as voted on by the World's Strongest Man athletes. Coming in with 22 points, consisting of 2 B tier votes, 2 A tier votes, and 3 S tier votes, is the most successful World's Strongest Man athlete of all time in Mariusz Pudzianowski, coming in 3rd. Not a normal spot for Mariusz. Mariusz is a legend, 5 times World's Strongest Man, more than anyone else. Even Zydrunas and Brian Shaw stopped at 4. But when people debate the greatest, he often ranks behind Brian and Zydrunas. Why? Well, it comes down to the era, the IFSA split, and the events. Pudzianowski dominated in World's Strongest Man formats that favored endurance, speed, and lighter implements, perfect for his body weight of around 290 pounds. And he looked like he was absolutely ready for a bodybuilding competition more than a strongman contest. But when it came to pure static strength, max deadlifts, log presses, or heavy squats, he wasn't on the same level as Shaw or Savickas, who could lift world record numbers in multiple disciplines, where Mariusz just couldn't. Shaw and Zydrunas not only won World's Strongest Man, but also conquered the Arnold Strongman Classic, which emphasizes raw, maximal strength. And this has to be a consideration when we're putting strongmen up against each other. Pudzianowski never won the Arnold's. So while his resume is incredible, the gap in absolute strength keeps him a notch below the other 2 in our top 2 all-time athletes. We're going to talk about the IFSA split a little bit more when we get around to Zydrunas, but let's get on to our top 2, Brian and Z. While these guys are 1A and 1B in most people's eyes, there actually wasn't a tie, which was very surprising to me. 1 point short of a perfect score is Zydrunas Savickas. An unnamed athlete voter had Brian, Eddie, and Mariusz as their top 3. Z had a perfect score otherwise with 6 S tier votes and the lone A tier vote. Now that 1 A tier vote was by an athlete who's not going to be named, but there could have been some national pride involved in that. Now Z is widely considered one of the greatest strongmen of all time. Why? First, his career longevity is unmatched. He was winning elite titles for over 2 decades. Second, his dominance in pure static strength is historic. He set world records in the log press, axle press, squat, and deadlift, and he's the only man to win both World's Strongest Man and the Arnold Strongman Classic 8 times. Now, of course, there's others who have won the Arnolds and Worlds, myself included, but 8 titles. That's 12 titles between World's Strongest Man and the Arnold, far and away better than anyone else. At his peak, Big Z could outlift anyone on the planet, and his consistency across every type of event, whether it was pressing, pulling, or moving, makes him the gold standard. Big Laws tells me about times when Z was going into an event that he had to do well that he shouldn't have been good at, and sometimes he just pulled it out of his ass because he was an incredible competitor. He wasn't just strong, he was relatively complete. When you combine records, titles, and sheer impact on the sport, it's hard to argue about Big Z being one of the best to ever live. But when it comes to impact on the sport, I think this is why he wasn't our number 1. The only WSM legend garnering a perfect score from the athletes was 4-time World's Strongest Man, Brian Shaw. Brian Shaw is one of the greatest strongmen in history. He's a 4-time World's Strongest Man champion, tied with legends like Páll and Magnus Ver. But what makes Shaw so special is a lot of things, but his size, consistency, and adaptability contribute considerably. At 6'8" and over 400 pounds, he was, of course, built for strongman after his basketball career, but he also trained with incredible precision and science, allowing him to peak year after year. His 13 times in a row winning his World's Strongest Man group is a record, and that consistency is unbelievable. But beyond his World's Strongest Man success, Brian dominated the Arnold Strongman Classic 3 times, proving he could handle the heaviest, most brutal contests on the planet, and he was going against Zydrunas in those contests. Not an easy victory. He's one of the few men to deadlift over 1,000 pounds, press over 200 kilos overhead, and still move quickly with stones, yokes, and carries. And maybe most importantly, Shaw elevated the sport's professionalism. Through training methods, business ventures, fan engagement, the Shaw Classic turned into the strongest man on earth. His legacy isn't just titles, it's that he made strongman bigger and better for the next generation, like myself and the other guys who voted. And this is probably why he was a unanimous S-tier athlete. Now, of course, to the athletes, there is a number of factors that contribute to their top strongman icons. Competition success, raw ability, longevity, some national pride comes into the mix. It's not cut and dry whatsoever. And I'd love to know, who do you think is the top 3 all time if you had to rank based on those factors? Of course, it's hard to do. It's hard to put anyone out of the S tier when they've won World's Strongest Man, but I think we did a relatively good job. Let me know how you thought we did. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that already. Leave a comment down below. Until next time, lift heavy, be kind, and we'll catch you tomorrow.